Good day everyone, I am Mayan Gamora Ragudo and I will be reporting about the ICT in various areas, specifically on the topics about distance learning, technology tools in a collaborative classroom environment, and the relevance and appropriateness in the use of technology in teaching and learning. The objectives are, at the end of the discussion, the students will be able to discuss the concepts of distance learning, technology tools in a collaborative classroom environment, and the principles in selecting instructional materials. Second is to value the importance of appropriateness in the use of technology in teaching and learning. And lastly is demonstrate and give examples of the different technology tools used in a collaborative classroom environment. So what is distance learning? Distance learning is a way of educating students online. Lectures and learning materials are sent over the internet. Students work from home, not in the classroom. So since the pandemic hit us, we were in this kind of learning, which is what we call distance learning or online learning. And since we are not allowed to go to the campus or to the school or what we call the face-to-face classes, so we are learning through our own, by the help of our instructors. And since karon is naara man jud ta mismo sa ato ang balay just to learn. So this is what distance learning means, which is ang mga lectures o mga learning materials is gihatag lang through online or through the internet. So there are advantages of distance learning. With the distance learning programs, students can pursue and complete their desired courses from anywhere with the use of computer and internet connection. So not just computer but cell phone, laptops, and etc. And it needs internet connection. So for example, I have a friend of mine before when I was in first year college. She's from Cebu, and even though layo siya diri sa Dumaguete, since I was a student from main campus before sa first year. So even though layo siya diri sa Dumaguete, still nakaskwela Japon siya with the help of this what we call distance learning. So distance education allows such students to find convenient time to study without interfering with their already busy schedule. So most especially sa mga working students na duha jud ilahang kailangang buhaton, which is to work and to study. So they can decide whether mutuon ba sila karon or unahon sa ba nilang trabaho or unya ra ba magtuon niya na. So one can study after work, in the middle of the night, or during weekends. Learning materials and instruction can actually be obtained online at any time. So working students can learn as they earn. So distance learning takes place online, which means students don't need to spend money and time commuting to and from class venues. So unlike before, na kailangan pa jud ta mo mataog sayo kay lagi mo nag-eskwelahan dayon, especially sa mga lagyo kay as far as I know sa college, like naaigikan sa Sambuanga, naaigikan sa Santa Catalina, na moana jud mismo sa campus just para lang makaskwela ingon ana. So it's a matter of money na pod, so dagdag gasto. So with the help of this distance learning, so students can take lessons and complete assignments from the comfort of their home. On the other hand, there are also disadvantages of distance learning. Distance learning only limits students to classes and learning materials that are based online. Though students can interact through chat rooms, discussion boards, emails, and or video conferencing software, the experience cannot be compared to that of a traditional campus. And with no face-to-face interaction with instructors and other students, those who are enrolled on an online program might find it hard to keep track of their course work and assignments. That's because there are no constant reminders about pending assignments and or deadlines. So one disadvantage of this, what we call distance learning, is the student magsalig na lang. Magsalig nga, ay unyara kay wala pa man dya po'y deadline, ingon ana. It only requires one to be self-motivated and focused to be able to complete a course successfully. Hence, distance learning cannot be a good option for students who keep procrastinating things or those who aren't able to stick to deadlines. Kay naana may, because of this distance learning, magsige na lang magsalig, magsige na lang unya na lang kay taas pa bitong deadline, taas pa bitong kuan, taas pa bitong oras, until maabot ang time nga maabta na sa deadline, diha na pud magproblema. So that's one of the disadvantages of distance learning. So distance learning falls into two main categories, which are the synchronous and asynchronous. So synchronous means at the same time. It refers to a method of education delivery that happens in real time. It requires live communication online. It uses technology such as teleconferencing to achieve this. And this approach limits the student's ability to learn at their own pace. It may frustrate some learners who crave the freedom of the asynchronous classroom. So, synchronous, like for example, since we're experiencing right now, kaning synchronous distance learning, once a week mumit ang teachers, dayon, ingon, na ay mga ipahatag na mga lectures or something like that. But asynchronous is the opposite of synchronous, because students receive clusters of weekly deadlines. They have the freedom to work at their own speed. So makapalami ra kaog kaning you have the decision ba kung mugama baka dayon or magpalangay-langay baka kay naara may kaning work tagaan ra ba kag taas nga panahon ba para kuan naray palantaw nga mga video recordings, mga audio recordings, ingon ana dayon. Kaning sa asynchronous distance learning comes with more opportunities for student interaction, and student can access course content beyond the scheduled meeting or class time and interact through online conversations, quizzes, or video comments on their own schedule. So maura joy naka the difference between synchronous is synchronous kaning you don't have the freedom to palangay-langay because sa asynchronous man jud is you're given a chance na matagaan pagtaas pero dili pud pwede nga abi kay tagaan na kag kanang taas nga panahon para humnon ang imong mga galamon magpalangay-langay na lang ka. So you need to be responsible enough since you are a student. So that's the two main categories of distance learning. So the advantage naasay disadvantage. So let us proceed to the technology tools in a collaborative classroom environment. Today's technology offers so many options for educators and students that deciding on where to begin can be overwhelming. Here are some helpful and versatile technology tools to easily and quickly integrate into your classroom and get your students in a classroom collaboration mindset. So, first is the email, or I know you're familiar with email or the electronic mail. So, it is the simplest way of communication. Can be used for information sharing, assignment submission. Yes, I'll tried or I experienced many times nga through email ipasa ang assignments, like dito pod mag-sharing mo sa imong mga classmates, like na ay mga lectures nga kailangan ko ano i-send na through email o ingon na. So that's how technology tools is very important for students and teachers. So the second is the chat or instant messaging. So I know you're very familiar with it. diba? So through messenger, ingon ana. So sa karon, if we have concerns, we have questions, clarifications, so we can communicate through chat, through messaging. I-chat na to atong teachers, mangutan na ta, ma'am, unsay nakoy question ma'am about ani, ingon ana. So chat or instant messaging is a real-time or instant direct communication. It requires 2 or more participants, of course, and it is used for kanang brainstorming and discussions, di ba? Like na mga group chats, dito magkuan, basta dili ra magmarites. So you need to use this in a good way for educational matter, like na ay mga lectures nga kailangan na kay mga questions unsa ganito ko ano o kasabot ato, then yun na mag-exchange of ideas. So through chat or instant messaging, there is kaning a collaborative classroom environment, especially these days. Next is the discussion boards. It can be used for brainstorming, discussions, assignment submissions, questions and answers, and it can be created even by students, and faculty can monitor and intervene, and being recorded allows to make content public. So same lang jud Japon, very helpful siya, not only for teachers but also sa students, since it can be used for brainstorming man, for discussions, for assignment submissions, ay ana. So next is blogs. Blogs is a website on which an individual or group of users share opinions, information, etc. on a regular basis. It can be used for class website, and share best practices, experience, course materials apart from textbooks, discussions and answers, questions. Makita na to ni siya through online. Naani siya online ang mga blogs, yun na. For kuan pa na siya mga educational, for educational matter, for educational for education, para sa education. So another technology tools is what we call the wikis. It is a website allowing creation and editing of any number of interlinked web pages via a web browser. So simplified markup language, or what you see is what you get editor. So history of edits is maintained, can be used for collaborative content creation and sharing, summary of classroom activities by teacher with the help from students. So it is by the help of this kani nga ginatawag na to nga wikis. So ang teachers makakuan na Japon, there is a collaboration between the teachers and their students. So next is polls. Polls for consensus or decision making. I know you're quite familiar with what polls means or unsa ni siya kuan. So makita na to ni sa messenger, especially sa messenger, like sa mga group chat, mga ana. Like for example ani, decision on shall we conduct an exam on Friday? Yes or no? So depende na kung kisay mo pili sa yes, kisay mo pili sa no. So I will not discuss further about ani since I know you're quite familiar with it. Alright, so the very famous or the very popular technology tools is what we call the social networks. So social networks like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and especially if educational social networks like Google Classroom, anatong gipanggamit karon just to continue lang jud aning atong ginatawag na online class. Muna siya kinatawag na tong social networks, and of course it is very helpful for students and teachers just to collaborate with each other, or para maka-share tag ideas, like for example sa Google Classroom dito nato ipang pass ato ang kuan, ipang pass ato ang mga assignments, mga mga quizzes, basta ingon na tanan ang social networks, web-based services that allow users to create profile, connect other users, and share text, images, videos, or enable interaction can be used to share resources, connect students and teachers. So, what yun ay very important or very highlight is connect students and teachers. That is what social network means. I know nga naana mo yung mga you have the knowledge about social networks or social networking sites. So another technology tool is what we call the web conferencing. So a web-based application for conferencing and meeting. And I know you're quite familiar with what web conferencing is. So for example, Google Meet, Zoom, and muna siya gigamit na to karon para maka-klase ta, para maka-send og mga lectures, maka-report ta dito ra ta sa Google Meet, since magkita ra po natong nawong kay naara man po yung open cam, open audio, ingonana. So it is very helpful for teachers and students, and also makater sad ang mga concerns sa students. So let us proceed to the relevance and appropriateness in the use of technology in teaching and learning. So first is the principle of appropriateness. Instructional materials must promote the general and specific goals of the class. So if you're asking instructional material, unsa na instructional materials, like for example kanang mga e-book nga ihatag sa atong teachers para tun-an, para if na ay quiz maka-answer, if na ay mga questions ang teachers maka-answer if mag-meet sa Google Meet. And then instructional materials must promote the general and specific goals of the class. So naadjud kay objective, and that is to let your students learn and apply it on their everyday lives. And instructional materials must be appropriate to the intended level. So vocabulary level, di po ka maghatag instructional materials dayon imong mga estudyante di na makasabot kay lisod ka. So it should match the vocabulary level of the students, of your students, and difficulty of concepts, methods of development, interest, appeal. And instructional materials must be either basic or supplementary to the curriculum. Di ka maghatag og instructional materials nga wala sad natarong sa imuhang kikuan nga kaning course or subject ingon ana. So it must be basic pod kay para pod ang mga students makasabot. But I am truly proud to those students nga maningkamot jud nga makaton lang jud bisan og kaning naara diri sa kaugalingon nga balay mag-research if na idi masabtan. So I am truly proud of those kind of students. So next is the principle of authenticity. So instructional materials must present accurate, up-to-date, and dependable information. So if you are giving instructional materials to your students, it should be accurate kanang based on reliable facts, na kay mga resources nga ikuhaan nga mga credible sources ingon ana. So para pod nga ang imuhang gihatag ng mga instructional materials is since tun-an biya na sa mga estudyante, so dapat jud nga accurate, up to date pod ang imuhang ihatag na instructional materials. So the principle of authenticity is very important, especially for kaning students. The principle of cost. Substitutes must be considered first. So, for example, you need to have a substitute or naakay kaning lain nga materials, instructional materials nga pwede mahatag sa imong mga students if ever gali ang usa is not available or not accessible. So, I've experienced this kind of situation sa karon since kaning naghatag og link amo ang instructor and then di man na mo ma-access. So na siya kaning murag substitute ba ana ba nga sige kani mo ikuan ninyo para madali ninyo ka-access. So very thankful to have that kind of instructor nga na-adjoy kaning murag silbi bala ba nga hingon ana jud na ay extra na ay kaning substitute para mahatag sa iyahang mga students. So that's what principle of cost means. Principle of interest. Instructional materials must catch the interest of the learners. It must stimulate curiosity or satisfy the learner's need to know. It must have the power to motivate, encourage creativity, and imaginative response among users. So, you should give instructional materials that will interest your that will give kaning interest sa mga students para basahon ang imuhang gihatag nga instructional materials. So sa una pa nga principle, it should be basic and supplementary to the curriculum. So dili pud pwede nga maghatag lagi og kaning very complicated na instructional materials kay tawo ng estudyante. Dili na may uban nga migtanan fast learners or dali makasabot. How about those kaning students nga maningkamot pa jud tawon para maningkamot tawon og unsa ni maningkamot pa og kay mo mangutana sa iyang classmates or something ana para lang makasabot. So it should catch the interest of the learners also. So the last is the principle of organization and balance. So it is very important that the content of the instructional materials that you will give to your students is or are well organized and well balanced in content. It's the purpose of the material must be clearly stated or perceived, and there should be logical organization. Where when you say logical, pasunod jud siya. Dili pwede nga kaning laktaw-laktaw ng wala ba nag-organize kay malibog tawo ng estudyante ana. And clarity and accordance with the principles of learning such as reinforcement, transfer, and application in the material. So that are the principles of kaning giving instructional materials to students or for teaching and learning process. So that's the end of my report. I hope you get something with it, and thank you so much for listening.